I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I get up when I'm bleeding, really bleeding. I'll never back down.
This is the collision of common sense and comedy. This is Defenders Live.
Right.
But legally, I'm 69. I will
So you
become
want
70.
to identify as 17 years?
Yeah, because, you know,
Sorry,
I feel like that.
27 years
I have
younger.
that feeling.
You're not actually 42, you're 69.
No, but the times has changed.
No, they haven't changed.
No, they have
No
changed.
time has changed.
And, so,
There's
and
been
that
no
birth
change
date
to
It has
hasn't
all
changed.
to do with beliefs. My biological...
I don't know if I need to say anything. That's just fantastic to me. I mean, 69-year-old man wants to legally change his age to 49. Says he feels that he is, 20 years younger. I mean, I don't see what the problem is. Do you? I don't understand what the issue is. Everything else that goes on is all about how someone feels. It's all about what they think. It's all literally made up. It's fluid. What's the problem? Why can't he? This is the kind of stupidity that was being talked about, and I know I've mentioned it, and Stephen and I, when we were in the beginning, we mentioned this. This is the kind of stupidity that's coming. This is how this stuff goes. Is 1 minute everything is, you're talking about this slippery slope, and nobody wanted. Oh no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Okay. I don't know if this guy's serious. I don't know if he's sticking with this as a parody to just stick it to the people. But I mean, at what point does it stop? What point do we say, okay, enough? This is asinine. Apparently, we haven't hit there yet, as I'll get into some really good stories about that here momentarily. But I figured between that audio clip and this wonderful little story will help kind of put you in a good mood, or not a good mood. It won't be a bad mood. Does that make sense? I wanted to make things a little bit happy-ish before we turned around and ruined it all and got into a bad mood with things. So, The View host Whoopi Goldberg, we all know and love Whoopi, is co-writing a comic book about a grandmother superhero whose powers are activated by menopause. I don't know who thought this up, who thought this is going to be a great idea, but here we are. The 67-year-old celebrity is co-writing the book for Dark Horse Comics, along with Paglia, who worked with the series, CW series The Flash, and Sci-Fi's channel's Eureka. The Change, this is the name, follows a woman named Isabel Frost, who feels stuck in a rut and unhappy with the direction of her life. She has friends, a relationship, and a grandson who loves video games, but she also feels bored with the quote-unquote stagnant routine of everyday life. Then she reaches the age of menopause, which spurs her superpowers to activate. Meanwhile, at the old folks' home. Screen Rant offered a first look at the project, which included images of the character wearing a long black leather coat, holding a blue and purple flame. The menopausal superhero Isabel Frost bears a striking resemblance to Goldberg. Shocking. Isn't that just weird? The Change has a scheduled release date of November 28th. Just in time for Christmas. This isn't Goldberg's first foray into writing, but it will be her first time experimenting with the world of graphic novels. The Sister Act star has written multiple titles, including children's books such as Sugar Plum Ballerinas and Whoopi's Big Book of Manners. I can't. The View's host has openly discussed her experience with menopause before, joking during a stand-up about the lack of treatments to help with hot flashes. Goldberg has been sharing controversial opinions for years on The View, including her recent comments about how children having transgender surgeries is supported by the Bible, which I thought about talking about, and I couldn't because I kept tasting blood in my mouth because I kept biting my tongue, and it got real swollen, and I thought it was probably a bad idea. Quote, "My God, this is a party that says we believe in parents' rights." This is what Goldberg said in a recent episode. Quote, "You're telling me that as a parent I'm not smart enough to decide if my child and I need," and notice that, my child and I need to have gender affirming or doctors are not involved. End quote. See, that's the problem with this whole transgender movement is it's not actually for the kids. Contrary to popular belief, has nothing to do with the children. 9 times out of 10, and it's not the child. It's something that it's a reflection from the parents. See, the parents in this instance probably don't have, no pun intended, the balls to actually go through with it themselves. This is transgenderism right now, currently, besides being a trend, is especially when it's pushed off by parents, is the textbook case of Munchausen by proxy. And no one at all is doing anything about this. We don't sit and we sit and talk about how, or I have anyway, how that transgenderism as a whole is a mental disease of some kind. There's some kind of trauma. There's something that's happened in the human brain that has caused that person to think that they are not what they genetically are. And so mentally they build up this story and these feelings, and society at large is supposed to accept them. We talk about it that way, but we never sit and talk about it from the angle of what parents are doing to these children. Aside the fact that it's abuse in its ugliest forms, we don't talk about the mental state of the parent who is pushing this. Because Munchausen by proxy is a mental issue in and of itself, and no one wants to address that either. It's not just child abuse, though it is. It's a mental issue with the parent, and no one's addressing that at all. But I continue with her quote. Quote, "So what is, I can't decide what my kid reads. I can't decide for my child what my child says is going on. You're telling me your beliefs, and they keep saying it, and I keep saying, what Bible are you reading? Because God was really clear," end quote. Yeah, God was very clear, actually. If you read the Bible, he created man and he created woman. That was all. There was there was no other gender that he created. None. He was clear. The Bible is clear. That little statement that I just quoted you was not clear at all because I read that verbatim. It made no sense there. I don't know how it made sense in her head. And I'm sure that the transcript, this quote, was pulled while other people were talking over her and everything else, which caused the breakup, which makes it sound like an insane person talking. But that's not the point. It still makes no sense, especially when you come back to what Bible are you reading, because God was really clear. Yes, he was. God created man. God created woman. That is all. If you want to try and speak on something like that, you should probably have your ducks in a row and know what the hell you're talking about. But I digress. Whoopi Goldberg will now, again, be the star, even though it's not said it's her. She will be the star of her own comic. And again, they're not claiming it's her, but I'm looking at the picture. It sure as hell looks like her. The Change, coming November 28th, to a comic book store near you. I know that these things will be flying off the shelves. I don't know how to take this. It's a superhero whose powers are activated by menopause. I don't know what these powers are. I would like to know. Because all it sounds like to me is as a guy, I will never experience this, but I've been told that menopause sucks for a woman. Menopause sucks a lot. It tends to make a woman, dare I say, a bit angry, agitated, frustrated, uncomfortable. You know, all these different things. And all this sounds like to me is an excuse for said woman to be able to then kick somebody's ass without having to get in trouble for it. We're not taking it out on friends and family. No, I'm stopping crime. Which, I mean, you know, I guess it beats, you know, being abusive or angry at your family. But I don't know. I'm going to go on a limb and say that this does not do well. You're not going to see anything in the Marvel cinema coming up. No movies on Disney Plus about Isabella Frost and The Change. I'm throwing that one out there now. I'm hedging my bet on this one right now. That's where I stand. Calling my shot. Babe Ruth pointing to the fence. I don't see this going anywhere. I could be wrong. You never know. But I'm not holding my breath at all. So that was all the fun. The cute little video, the audio I played in the beginning, the guy wants to identify as 49 when he's really 69. Whoopi Goldberg apparently is going to be a menopausal superhero. I'm trying to drag this out because it just gets bad from here. That was the high level of the show. After this, it's just gonna suck. It really is. I'm warning you now. It's going to suck. Scientific American published an opinion piece insisting that claiming sex is binary is, quote, bad science, end quote. I don't know if you caught that or not, but a publication titled Scientific American put out an opinion piece that claiming that sex is binary is bad science. Now, one would assume that with a name like Scientific American, that they would not maybe be full-blown experts, but kind of be somewhat of an authority on science in one field or another. And I understand that this is an opinion piece, but still, you would think that even as an opinion, they would have some kind of knowledge in science. But apparently, I was wrong. The article Quote, here's why human sex is not binary, end quote. Written by Princeton University's anthropologist, Dr. Agustin Fuentes. Sounds very official, doesn't it? Mocks Republicans, saying, quote, Republican congressional representatives upset at the nominee's refusal to define woman took it on themselves to define the term, end quote. Fuentes quotes a group of biologists declaring, quote, reliance on strict binary categories of sex fails to accurately capture the diverse and nuanced nature of sex, end quote. I'm going to stop there for a minute. I'm beginning to think personally that the actual problem is we keep referring to gender and sex. I feel like they keep getting interchanged. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not paying attention and I'm assuming one thing and hearing another. The diverse and nuanced nature of sex, in my humble opinion, and I am not a scientist, I'm not educated in these things to the degree that a lot of these people from Scientific American publication is, I would assume. But to me, when you speak of the diverse and nuanced nature of sex, that's referring to the preferences and the desires of an individual when engaging in the act of sex. Gender, as far as I am concerned, and as far as my 2 cents goes, is about male and female. And to me, there are only two. So the fact that you want to interchange these things like this is misleading at best. Because there is strict binary categories when it comes to gender. It is male and female. There is nothing else. Now, are there the medical anomalies where you have an actual, what I remember as an actual transvestite, one or I think that was the only name they had for him back then, where you were, due to some kind of genetic DNA kind of messing up, and it's not intentional. It doesn't happen very often. As a matter of fact, it was very rare. But to be born with both male and female DNA and whatnot, that was it. And that was an anomaly. That was not, part of the norm. So there are just the two genders. Now, sure, you can have a wide variety of diverse and nuanced nature of sex. Again, the act of it, because there are different things that people... There are guys who want to have sex with guys. There are women who want to have sex with women. There are, a myriad of different things out there. It's just like there's a different variety, in my opinion, there's a different variety of ways you can have pizza. You can have it with pineapple on top. Why? I don't know. That is a sin and an abomination against God, but that's a discussion for another day. You can have just pepperoni. You can have just cheese. You can have it with no sauce. You can have all these different ways. The same thing applies when it comes to sex. There's different ways you can do it. There's different people you can have it with. There's and there's nothing... in general, we're not talking about pedophilia, but in general, there's nothing wrong with the different diverse things. As long as it's between two consenting adults, it doesn't matter, okay? But at the end of the day, it is, you can't keep mixing sex and gender and trying to bounce back and forth and say one is one and the other one is the other one and then bounce it and changing it back. You can't. Quote, today... dishonest descriptions of what biology is are being deployed to restrict women's bodily autonomy, target the LGBTQAI/LMNOP plus individuals broadly, and most recently attack the rights of transsexual and transgender people. Given what we know about biology across animals and in humans, efforts to represent human sex as binary based solely on what gametes one produces are not about biology, but are about trying to restrict who counts as full human in society, end quote. Now, I read that poorly, and I apologize for that. But the point of this is again, this is where they just turned and they tweaked everything. It's a shifting of what word they're talking about and what it actually means. Because he said it right there, or she, I apologize, Augustin, I assume it's a guy. Dr. Fuentes. He said it right there, attack on the rights of transsexual and transgender people. Sex is different than gender. Because if it wasn't different, why would you have to name them both? Transsexual people, as I understand it, are people who want to have sex with someone who used to be a different gender. That's the way I take it. Transgender people are people who are born biologically a male or biologically a female and transition into a male or female, opposite of what they were. It's that simple. You can't sit there that, given what we know about biology across animals. Animals? Every class, every group, all animals, with the exception of a few amphibious and marine animals, they're still at the end of it a male-female thing. Gender, groups. There is no third and fourth. And to sit here and to try and go, well, we see, I said, it's biology. No, you're an idiot. Other scientists hotly disputed Fuentes' perspective. University of Chicago biologist Dr. Jerry Coyne, a biologist at the University of Chicago, told the Daily Mail that Scientific American was promulgating an, quote, authoritarian progressive leftist agenda, end quote. And that's putting it nicely. Quote, when biologists claim that sex is binary, we mean something straightforward. There are only two sexes. This is true throughout plant and animal kingdoms, end quote. That is from evolutionary biologist Dr. Colin Wright. Quote, this is the biological definition of sex that all biologists adhere to. An organism's sex is defined by the type of a gamete, sperm or ova. It has the function of producing. This is true of all animals and true of most all plants. It's a binary. It is a binary because there's no middle sex. This fact has been believed by biologists for many years. This fact has been denied by ideologues. First off, I would argue, as a layman and what have you, that a fact doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It's a fact. It stands on its own. I'm just throwing that there. Quote, teaching there is not two sexes in human distorts the facts of nature. You distort people's understanding of reality, concluded Dr. Coyne. As far back as 2016, a biology review titled, How a Transgender Woman Could Get Pregnant, end quote. Scientific America's Dinah Fine-Marin, holy cow, that was hard to do, suggested that transsexual men turned females might be able to become pregnant. Marin wrote about the work of Mats Brandström, a Swedish gynecologist. According to the study, Brandström published, his first successful patient started her first menstrual cycle 43 days after transplantation, and she continued to menstruate at regular intervals between 26 and 36 days, a median of 32. 1 year after transplantation, the recipient underwent her first single embryo transfer, which resulted in pregnancy. Brandström implanted the artificial or human extracted uterus into the womb for the purpose of helping women who wanted to have children, but were missing a uterus. Scientific American has extrapolated from that action that men who identified as women might be able to someday become pregnant. This is what they're teaching is science, guys. Aren't you excited? The world is in such a great place. I love it. We're doing so well.
In today's troubled world, our USA Armed Forces stand ready to protect you, your family, and our American way of life. When veterans return to civilian life, they deserve your recognition and support. You can help put vets to work by donating your car, truck, or van to Patriotic Hearts. Your donation will directly support programs to help vets find jobs or even start their own business. Donate today for fast, free pickup of your vehicle, running or not. Operators are standing by to answer questions about making a tax-deductible vehicle donation. Find out how you can make a difference in the life of a United States veteran. Call 800-209-6482 for 24-hour response. Call 800-209-6482. 800-209-6482. That's 800-209-6482.
This is Defenders Live.
It is Defenders Live. Live on YouTube. Also on Twitter, which I don't know if I'm going to keep doing or not. To be perfectly honest, nobody's watching on Twitter. I don't think anybody ever has watched on Twitter. As long as we've done the show on Twitter, no one's watched it there, so I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that or not. Try and figure out something else that I can make work with it and utilize it there. But anyway, follow us on all the social medias at DOAE Show. You can send an email of your likes or complaints or what have you over at DOAEShow at gmail.com. About it, I guess. I mean, there's more stuff. I mean, there's a way that you can support the show. If you're on Spotify, you can click on the little linky thing there, go to anchor.com and find Defenders Live. You can go that route as well. One little pitch I'd like to do real quick, if it's possible, if you haven't already, or if you know somebody to help. I'm trying, as you know, it's been me since January. We're kind of rebuilding the show from 6 years of what we've been doing before. Steven has left and is doing well, but, we're no longer doing it together. So this is a whole new revamp that I'm trying to get done. One of the things, obviously, trying to do is grow the popularity. If you go to Spotify and follow the show, if you haven't already, and you don't even have to subscribe to pay necessarily, I don't think. But go to Spotify and follow the show. Actually, follow the show. Once the show has 100 followers, then they will start throwing ads on, which will start generating, albeit minuscule. It'll still be some bit of a revenue, a couple cents here, a couple cents there, and pennies add up. So if you listen on those, that would be great if you would go there. If you know anybody who has Spotify, even if they never listen to the show, and they don't have to, they just need to follow it. Just go over there, click follow. Hell, leave a review. That would be nice too. That would be fantastic. Just to help out the show, if you can. That would be very much appreciated. Duke Medicine which is here in the great state of North Carolina, opened its gender clinic in 2015 to offer a wide variety of services under one roof. The clinic treats children as young as 2 for gender dysphoria. I'm going to say that just in case you just happen to be tuning in case you're whatever. Duke Medicine opened its gender clinic in 2015 to offer a wide variety of services under one roof, and the clinic treats children as young as 2 for gender dysphoria. Dr. Deanna Adkins, a transgender activist who runs the clinic, said this about her toddler trans patients in an interview with the Charlotte Observer in 2016. Quote, "They're not old enough to consciously just choose to do that. It's not a choice in any of my patients. It's really an unpleasant thing to have going on in your body, to feel that distress about yourself. I can't imagine anyone would choose to do that." End quote. In her expert declaration to a federal district court in North Carolina hearing on HB 2, Adkins stated, quote, from a medical perspective, the appropriate determinant of sex is gender identity. End quote. This doctor thinks that the only way, the correct way, to determine an individual's sex is by what that person feels like. I played at the beginning of the show a man was on Good Morning Britain. I think that's what that was. Piers Morgan was there. Guy who is 69 who decides that he identifies as 49 and wants everything legally changed. As silly as that sounds, this is the same thing as what this is. You were born biologically a male or born biologically a female, and you decide, no, that's not what I am. And that the only way that it is right is because that person says so. We're being told to not trust what we see. Basically. Adkins argues that gender identity is not only the preferred basis for determining sex, but, quote, the only medically supported determinant of sex, end quote. Now, how is that possible? As a doctor, somebody who treats a human body, is saying that the only way to medically and properly take care of someone is based off of whether or not the person feels like a male or feels like a female. There's a little bit of a problem with that. Again, I'm not a doctor. However, I do know that there are certain things that men have that women don't. Okay? And vice versa. Okay? One of the biggest ones. And it makes me, giggle every time, but at the same time, if you don't laugh, it's because you're just sad. It's the articles and things I keep seeing up here lately about how trans women are suddenly pancreatic cancer as regular men. There's a reason for that. Because not pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer. I'm sorry, prostate cancer. Because men get prostate cancer. Why? Because women don't. But they're trying to, just like with the birthing thing, oh, well, we can move this over here and make it do that. No. You can't sit here and look at someone and say, oh, the only medically supported determinant of sex is what the person feels. That's like, I see these videos of these people, these guys who are claiming to be women, who are complaining about having a menstrual cycle. You don't have a menstrual. I know it's not what it's called, but it made me giggle. You don't have a womb. You don't have a uterus. You don't have any of the parts to have a menstrual cycle. What is probably hurting you is your body being rewritten. The hormones that you're forcing to become dominant in a body that was not meant to have it dominant in. A male body is testosterone dominant. To turn around and to change all of that with estrogen, to pump that as the heart, it's going to take a toll on the body. Quote, it is counter to medical science to use chromosomes, hormones, internal reproductive organs, external genitalia, or secondary sex characteristics to override gender identity for purpose of classifying someone as male or female. End quote. So again, I'm going to throw another one out there that is a big difference because as a guy, I know these ones because I have them. Testicular cancer. Women do not get testicular cancer. Even the ones who get surgeries to have the whole twig and berries put down there. They don't get them. Why? Because it's not part of the DNA. It's not a downfall to it. So for a biological woman, even having gone through surgery, to go in and suddenly go, hey, I've got testicular cancer, you're an idiot. This ludicrous statement explains how this doctor can see a 2-year-old girl playing with a toy truck and then can begin treatment for gender dysphoria. 2-year-old. But it gets better because a few miles down the road at UNC Health, children as young as 3 can be evaluated for gender dysphoria. The clinic states it practices gender-affirming care, which is gender transitioning, and it takes on on its intake form the affirmed name. What name would you like to be called? Pronouns, your gender identity, which their listing is e.g., in parentheses, e.g., female, male, non-binary, trans, queer gender, something else. Now, how can you treat something that is something else? The human body, and for a moment, I'm going to table the whole gender thing and the differences and blah, blah, blah. But the human body is a very complex vessel, creation, whatever you want to call it. It's very complex. We still don't fully understand a lot of it. How are you going to properly treat a patient that is, quote, something else? I'll wait. The other option is, or another next one is sex assigned at birth. And they give 3 of them, male, female, intersex. No, excuse me, female. Words are very important, just so we're clear. Everything is put there in place for a reason. There's a reason why they keep throwing female first. Okay? And that goes into the whole patriarchy thing and blah, blah, blah. We're not getting into tonight. I just wanted to point that out. There's a reason. You see this picture, everything that has to do, women come first. Okay? Anyway, your date of birth, today's date, referring provider or self-referred, which name another, I don't want to say aggressive, but we'll go with major. Name another major medical type procedure that you can self-refer? Anything? Hell, you have to be referred to get braces put on. You have to get referred to get treated for sleep apnea and to get a CPAP machine. You have to be referred for just about everything else in the medical field. But apparently, gender-affirming care, quote unquote, you don't have to. You can self-refer. Huh. They want your medical record name and medical record if known. Continuing on down this wonderful little list. Reason for referral. Check all that apply. That you are a young child, age 3 to 11. Psych education support, a family, child, or family, a child. The next one is guidance on social transitioning and access to resources. Support resources for exploring, or support and resources, for exploring gender identity and expression. Evaluation of gender dysphoria and recommendation for resources and supportive services. Consultation only with a psychiatrist for medication management. Must be looking for local psychiatrist. Autism spectrum, learning disability, psychoeducational consultation. Psychotherapy recommendation for anxiety, depression, trauma, social stressors. Family or partner support only for adults ages 18 plus. Letters of support for surgery. That's the reason that you get listed there. Children as young as 3. Again, all self-referred. Interested parents are assured on UNC's website that a team of psychiatrists, endocrinologists, family doctors, and surgeons will collaborate to affirm, quote unquote, their child's gender. How eager is UNC to, quote unquote, affirm gender? So eager, in fact, that its medical school residents offer cross-sex hormones for free. For free. Every third Wednesday. So, if you happen to be in the greater Raleigh area, or as we call it down here in the Triangle area, and you or someone you love or your child that you happen to be, shoving this, Munchausen by proxy onto, you could take them every third Wednesday to get free cross-sex hormones. Isn't it great? It gets better. North Carolina is pissing me off. ECU, Eastern Carolina University Health, recently jumped on the bandwagon, opened its own quote-unquote pride clinic, seeing children of all ages. The activist who direct the clinics, Dr. Colby Dendy, said this is in an interview with the East Carolinian, quote, "The literature tells us that kids can start around age 4 having their gender identity. So we do not want to exclude anyone within pediatrics realm. A big part of our goal is to provide affirming primary care to everyone of the LGBTQ plus spectrum," end quote. Majority of ECU health family medicine doctors indicate that they are trained and ready to accept the influx of patients on the center's website. Dendy and her colleagues at ECU published a recent paper calling for doctors and clinics to push puberty blockers and hormones through telemedicine and school awareness programs. A month after the doctors at ECU Pride Clinic published the paper, the school announced it had received $3.2 million for its telepsychiatry program for school children. It's a little bit of a coinky-dink, don't you think? All these institutions offer intensive therapy sessions for children wishing to change their gender with conversion therapy. I want to stop and bring something to everyone's attention for just a moment. I would like to know why This is okay. Gender conversion therapy for children is okay. But I distinctly recall, even back before I was mere twinkle in my father's eye, that there was a time in this country where someone who, say, liked to enjoy the pleasures of the body with one of the same gender, to put it quite nicely. Gay folks, we'll keep it crass, as might as well. That the gay folks were being treated with a sort of attempt at a conversion therapy, weren't they? I distinctly recall those things kind of going on. Wasn't it certain things like sterilization on the very extreme sides? There was electroshock therapy. There's all kinds of things that were meant to try and keep the person from doing that. But now they're implementing virtually the same therapy, virtually the same things. And it's okay. They get $3.2 million to help do telepsychiatry programs. It's encouraged. What the hell happened? Where did the switch come from? When did it happen? You're going to tell me that it was a horrible thing for these quote-unquote Bible thumpers to turn around and chastise their children for wanting to be in a same-sex relationship. But we're in 2023, and it is okay for a child as young as 2 to be able to go through gender conversion therapy? What the actual hell? It gets better. In court testimonies, Dr. Deanna Adkins, remember her, the nice lady who's okay with doing it to 2-year-olds, explains how she treats youngsters before puberty. And I would say 2 years old is a lot before puberty, but I digress. Treatment does not include any drug or surgical intervention. For this group of patients, treatment is limited to social transitions, which means allowing a transgender child to live and be socially recognized in accordance with their gender identity. I'm going to stop there. That's not social transitioning. That's brainwashing. That's manipulation. That is, oh God, I can't, that's brainwashing. And on what grounds does a child, again, as young as 2, how does that child have the ability to be able to make an assertion? And just because you see your child playing with a truck when you think he should be playing with a doll, or is playing with a doll instead of playing with a truck. Here's the thing about kids. I'm gonna not even go that far. As a child, I personally used to play with sticks. Didn't grow up with a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of toys. We had some. Don't get me wrong. My parents, were not neglectful like that. But, we played outside 9 times out of 10 when we played with sticks. So does that mean I can identify as a tree? I'm just curious. The insanity continues. Quote, this can include allowing children to wear clothing, to cut or grow their hair, to use names and pronouns, to access restrooms and other sex-separated facilities and activities in line with their gender identity instead of the sex assigned to them at birth. Social transition is a critical part of treatment. Patients with gender dysphoria of all ages, but it's the only treatment for pubertal. Had to read that one slowly. Basically prepubescent children. Okay? Social transitioning, that's it. You brainwash the child into thinking there's something else. And that's the only way to treat it. No, it's not the only way to treat it. Here's the thing, as a parent, your job is to raise your child. Okay? If they are born female, you raise them to be females. Now, that's not to say that as they get older, she may become a tomboy, might like to do a lot of things with the boys like to do whatever. Doesn't mean she's necessarily going to be a girly girl. If you have a son, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be all about monster trucks and wrestling and everything else. He might want to be a baker. He might want to be a singer. He might want to be in movies and actor and plays and everything else. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I feel like that part of the pendulum got missed. We went from the extremes of this is how it absolutely has to be. A man has to be this tough and can't do anything. A man has to can't show emotions, has to do all these things. Same with women in the reverse. And then the pendulum swung back the other direction where we went way past where it's okay to kind of do both. And now it's the complete opposite. It's an incomplete insanity land where if you as a male actually express your feelings, then you really aren't a man, you're a woman in a man's body. That makes no sense. A recent study published in Pediatrics examined the 5-year gender identity development trajectory of transgender identified children who underwent early social gender transition. 5 years later, at the average age of 11 to 12, almost all, that's 97.5%, continued to identify as transgender, including a small subset of 3.5 developing a non-binary education. Again, your job as a parent is to raise your child. Children need structure. Children need security. Children need consistency. When the moment that they are born and they start to fully comprehend things on that kind of a level, you start introducing that there is no consistency, that there is no structure, that there is no rules, no lines, no nothing, then it goes to hell. Only 2.5% of children desisted from transgender identification at the end of the study period and re-identified with their sex. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that most of those probably had some kind of a push from somebody on the other side saying, hey, it's okay to be born a boy and want to bake at an easy bake oven. It's okay for a girl to play with a Tonka truck. They're just toys. Now, do I personally have a weird thing about a boy playing with a doll? No, not really. I'm not going to go and buy him one. But I'm not going to poo-poo him if he's playing with it. Because guys end up becoming dads, oddly enough. They have to take care of babies too. Another study conducted by the left-wing American Academy of Pediatrics reports that once children socially transition at an early age, they will generally remain transgender at the 5-year follow-up. That means the 4-year-old who is brainwashed to believe that he was born in the wrong body will remain confused and depressed at the age of 9. Children take what is given to them, the information that they are taught by people that they trust, and they're being lied to. And then we're building society around them to go, no, this is actually right. The lies that your parents are telling you are absolutely the facts of everything. Everything is everything. There is no concrete. There is no up. There is no down. There is no left, right. There's no white. There's no black. Everything is whatever you want it to be. And we wonder why society is literally crumbling. These doctors and clinics know that by catching children and their families at 2 or 3, they can generate enormous amounts of cash because patients will likely rely on lifetime medication. Legislation to ban this practice now sits at the North Carolina House and Senate. Actually, it's already gone through. A lot of it's already been gone through about that. The governor is getting ready to veto, allegedly, what was being passed, but there's enough, thank God, there's discussion that there's enough Republican votes to turn around and overturn his veto. So this kind of stuff, thank God, looks to be ending here in North Carolina, but still, that's just in North Carolina. What's going on in your state? Do you have any idea If you don't, you need to be looking into it. You need to be getting a hold of your congressman, your state legislature. You need to be finding out what's going on and get this stuff stopped. Children as young as 2. This is not. If you as an adult, as a full-grown adult, want to change your outer body and do all this stuff, that's on you. You're an adult. You make your decisions. To brainwash these children at the age as young as 2 is child abuse. You don't need to have them, and you don't need to be around them. I put them in the parents that do that in the same category as pedophiles. And you can quote me on that one. Thank you for listening. Follow the show at all the social medias at DOAE Show. New episodes next Saturday, 7 p.m. Y'all be good. We'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.